Marc Bolton had no idea his life would change forever when the phone rang that morning. The rejection he'd received from RCA the day before had crushed him so badly he was thinking about giving up music altogether. But the voice on the phone sounded familiar. "I'm David Bowie's assistant. David wants to see you today," the woman said. Marc thought it was a prank, until he found himself face to face with Bowie at Trident Studios. "I heard you yesterday," Bowie said with a smile, "and now the world is going to hear you too." From that moment on, Marc Bolton's life would never be the same. If you're listening to this story and want to learn more, please don't forget to subscribe, because the truth behind this story reveals the birth of one of the music industry's most powerful friendships. March 15, 1972, Wednesday morning. In the waiting room of RCA Records' London office, Marc Bolton clutched the demo tape that carried his last hope. He was only 19 years old, but he'd been fighting for his musical dream for 2 years. That morning he had an appointment with A&R director Mike Chapman, and this was his first serious opportunity at a major record label. What Marc didn't know was that David Bowie would also be in the same building that day for meetings about his own project. The meeting in Chapman's office was a disaster. The A&R director stopped Marc's demo after just 30 seconds of listening. "This kind of music is over," he said in a cold voice. "Folk rock is dead. People want glam rock and progressive music. Your style isn't commercial." Ignoring the disappointment on Marc's face, he closed the file. "Maybe you should try a different kind of music. Thanks." When Marc walked out of Chapman's office, his world had collapsed. As he moved down the corridor, he thought about throwing the tape in the trash, but at the last moment his courage failed him. He leaned against the wall and put his head in his hands. Just then, he heard a familiar voice from the other end of the building. David Bowie was coming out of his own meeting, talking with his assistant. "We're open to new talent," Bowie was saying, "but finding it is so difficult." Bowie noticed the young man sitting in the corridor. The demo tape in Marc's hand and the disappointment on his face caught Bowie's attention. The rock star, remembering his own young days, approached Marc. "Are you here for music?" he asked kindly. When Marc looked up and saw Ziggy Stardust in front of him, he was shocked. "Yes," he stammered, "but I guess I'm in the wrong place." As Bowie listened to Marc's story, he noticed a strange feeling rising within him. This young man reminded him of something, maybe his own struggling days. "Can I see your demo tape?" he asked. When Marc hesitantly handed it over, Bowie read, "The Dreamer, Marc Bolton," written on the label. "Nice name," he said. "Can I listen to this?" Normally, Bowie never listened to demos from musicians he didn't know. His manager Tony DeFries constantly reminded him that such requests came all the time and that his time was very valuable. But there was something different about Marc. Maybe it was the genuine disappointment in his eyes. "Let's listen to it real quick in my car," Bowie said. Sitting in the red Bentley in front of the RCA building, Marc's tape started playing. When the first notes were heard, Bowie's facial expression changed. This wasn't just folk rock. Marc's voice was raw but very emotional, his melodies simple but very effective. During the chorus of The Dreamer, Bowie found himself nodding his head. "Who is this?" he asked. "Did you play all the instruments yourself?" Marc nodded shyly. "I recorded it in my basement. I know it's very amateur." Bowie raised his hand to silence him. "No," he said seriously, "this isn't amateur. This is raw and real, and that's exactly what the music industry needs most right now." When the tape ended, Bowie was silent for a while. Marc's heart was racing because he couldn't read Ziggy Stardust's reaction. Finally, Bowie turned and looked at Marc. "Marc, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to be honest. Do you really want to be a musician? Not just dreaming about it, but really living it." "It's my whole dream," Marc replied, "but apparently I'm not good enough." Bowie smiled. "Forget what Mike Chapman said. That guy rejected me last year too. He said the name David Bowie wasn't commercial. My music was too weird. Now the same guy is calling me wanting to collaborate." Marc's eyes widened. "I'm going to make you an offer, but first let me say something. This won't be easy. You'll have to work hard and learn a lot." Bowie paused and looked into Marc's eyes. "I'm going to mentor you. I'll give you studio time, introduce you to my musicians, and we'll make an album. All I want in return is for you to make your real music and never give up." Marc's mouth dropped open. Is this a joke?" he asked. "No, Marc," Bowie said. "This is the beginning of your new life." The next week, Marc found himself at Trident Studios. Bowie had introduced him to Tony Visconti, the legendary producer who had worked with the Beatles, T-Rex, and of course Bowie's own albums. "David told me a lot about you," Visconti said as he greeted Marc. "Let's see what we can do with this talent." The first studio day was a complete culture shock for Marc. Professional instruments, complex recording equipment, famous musicians, everything overwhelmed him. But Bowie was patient. "I was like this when I recorded my first album too," he told Marc. "What matters is the music. Technical stuff can be learned." Bowie wasn't just teaching Marc about studio work, but also stage performance. "Music isn't just something that happens in the studio," he would say. "The real magic happens on stage." In Trident's empty hall, he taught Marc about stage presence. Make eye contact with the audience. Feel your music. Show them how to live your music, not how to be you. During this time, Bowie's own career was also at its peak. The Ziggy Stardust character had made him a worldwide star. His concerts were selling out. The press was chasing him. But he dedicated at least 2 days a week to working with Marc. "Why do you give me so much time?" Marc asked one day. "Because," Bowie said, "real music shouldn't die." 6 weeks later, Marc's first single was ready, a new, professional version of The Dreamer. Bowie had introduced him to his own producer and arranged for him to work with his team of sound engineers. The result was incredible. Marc's raw voice was preserved but supported by professional production. But the real surprise was how the single was released. Bowie spoke with RCA, his own label, and made a special deal for Marc. "I'm backing this kid," he told the label executives. "If you don't support him, I'll move to another label." The same Mike Chapman, who had rejected Marc a few weeks earlier, was now welcoming him with open arms at RCA. When the Dreamer single was released in April 1972, nobody expected it to rise so quickly. It was played by John Peel on BBC Radio 1, then pirate radio stations followed. In the third week, it entered the UK singles chart at number 47. By the fourth week, it was at number 23. Marc couldn't believe it. "How is this possible?" he asked Bowie. "I was kicked out of RCA a month ago." "That's how the music industry works," Bowie said with a smile. "Sometimes you just need the right person to hear you. I just opened the door. It was your music that walked through." The success of The Dreamer also caught the attention of the music press. Melody Maker wanted to interview Marc. NME nominated him in the Discovery of the Year category. Music Week magazine did a cover story with the headline, "Bowie's Protégé." In his first major interview, Marc had emotional moments while describing Bowie's role. "David didn't just believe in my music, he believed in me," he told the journalist. "The day everyone rejected me, he opened a door for me. This wasn't just professional, it was a human gesture." When Bowie read this interview, he approached the situation very modestly. "Marc's success is the result of his own talent," he said in an interview with The Guardian. "I just introduced him to the right people. The music was already there." But the music industry read this mentorship story very differently. Young musicians started chasing after Bowie, sending demo tapes to his assistant, waiting outside concerts, trying to stop him on the street. This phenomenon, which began to be called the Bowie effect, started making the rock star's life difficult. Marc's rapid rise also brought unexpected problems. He was experiencing sudden success syndrome, feeling overwhelmed by media pressure, and being affected by criticism that he was living in Bowie's shadow. "People see me as Bowie's project," he complained one day. "Can I find my own identity?" Bowie had foreseen this situation. "Marc, you're going through the hardest part now," he told him. "Success is easy, maintaining success is hard, and the hardest thing is maintaining success with your own identity." He advised Marc, "Don't imitate my style. Develop your own style. I just opened the door for you. You're going to decorate the room." During this period, Bowie began giving Marc more independence. He reduced studio time, devoted more time to his own projects. "This isn't abandoning you," he explained. "This is learning to stand on your own feet." Marc panicked at first. He thought he couldn't succeed without Bowie's support, but gradually he began developing his own musical identity. His second single, Midnight Conversations, reflected a more personal, more mature Marc Bolton. As months passed, the relationship between Marc and Bowie evolved from mentor-student to real friendship. Marc did backing vocals on some songs for Bowie's new album, Aladdin Sane. Bowie appeared as a guest guitarist on Marc's second album. Working with David taught me that music isn't just business, Marc said in later interviews. He's one of those rare people who chase real art, putting commercial concerns second. The biggest thing I learned from him was being honest in my music. Bowie had learned different things from Marc. Marc's innocence reminded me what music is about, he said in a 1973 interview with Rolling Stone. While I was dealing with very complex concepts, he could touch people with simple but powerful melodies. This made me look at my own music from a different angle. This mutual exchange of inspiration was reflected in both of their music. While Marc's folk influence could be felt in some songs on Bowie's Diamond Dogs album, glam rock touches began to become prominent in Marc's music. Marc Bolton's success story led to lasting changes in the music industry. Major record companies began re-evaluating musicians they had previously rejected. A&R directors became more open-minded, willing to listen to different types of music. RCA Records replaced Mike Chapman with a more visionary A&R director. The new director, Sarah Williams, told Music Business Weekly, "We learned from the Bowie Bolton story. We're going to focus on developing talents instead of rejecting them." This change in approach wasn't limited to RCA. EMI, Polydor, and other major labels adopted similar policies. Young talent development programs were opened. Mentorship services began being offered to inexperienced musicians. Music journalists began calling this situation the Bowie Revolution. Not only musical styles were changing, but the industry's approach to young talent was also transforming. Marc's first major concert took place at Rainbow Theatre. The 2,000-person venue was completely sold out, and important figures from the music industry were in the front rows. Backstage, Marc was very nervous. "What if I can't do it?" he asked Bowie. "What if I can't meet expectations?" "Marc, when you go on stage, just think about your music," Bowie said in a calming voice. "Forget the audience, forget the press, forget expectations. Just remember that moment when you first sang in the studio. Take those feelings to the stage." The concert was amazing. When Marc opened with The Dreamer, the hall stood up. During the third song, the sound system malfunctioned, but Marc continued acoustically, just like Bowie had taught him. This is the power of real music, Bowie thought, watching the stage. At the end of the concert, the standing ovation lasted for minutes. Marc couldn't hold back his tears. Backstage, Bowie hugged him. "This is it," he said. "This is what we were looking for. You're a real musician now." From 1973 onwards, Marc and Bowie's paths partially separated, but their friendship continued. Marc had completely developed his own musical identity, becoming an independent artist. Bowie was killing off Ziggy Stardust and creating new characters. In 1975, Marc opened for Bowie's concerts for the first time. He took the stage as Bowie's opening act during the Diamond Dogs tour. "I started this journey as a student. Now I'm continuing as an equal partner," Marc said during that period. When Marc's third album, Independent Soul, was released in 1976, music critics began seeing him not as Bowie's protégé, but as a successful artist in his own right. The album reached number 8 on the UK chart and went gold in America. The Marc Bolton story was actually just the visible part of a larger phenomenon. There were dozens of other young musicians that Bowie had secretly supported over the years. Most didn't become as successful as Marc, but all benefited from Bowie's mentorship. According to documents that emerged in the 1980s, Bowie had established a special fund, the Young Artist Development Fund. From this fund, 10-15 young musicians received studio time, instrument assistance, and educational support each year. The fund operated completely anonymously. "David never bragged about this," Marc said in an interview after Bowie's death. "He just believed that music should be passed on to future generations. I was just one of the lucky ones." This secret philanthropy was fully revealed after Bowie's death. In his will, he had set aside special allocations for the fund to continue. The David Bowie Young Talent Foundation still operates actively today. Marc Bolton's discovery is considered one of the best examples showing the power of mentorship in rock history. Music academics study this story as an example of how one gesture can change music history. The Marc Bolton story is a mandatory case study in the curriculum of the Music Industry Mentorship course that opened at London School of Music in 2010. What Bowie did, says Professor Amanda Richards, who teaches the course, is a perfect example of how the modern music industry should be. Today, many famous musicians are supporting young talent inspired by Bowie. Artists like Chris Martin from Coldplay, Tom York from Radiohead, and Win Butler from Arcade Fire have launched their own talent discovery programs. After David Bowie's death in 2016, Marc Bolton's interview moved everyone. David didn't just teach me music, he taught me how to live. Thanks to him, I understood that music isn't just business, it's a force that brings people together. Marc sang The Dreamer at Bowie's funeral. They had met because of this song. They said goodbye with this song. Every time I play it, I remember him, Marc said through tears, and every time I help a young musician, I feel his spirit living on. Today, 69-year-old Marc Bolton is still making music, but he's also running his own talent discovery program, the Dreamer Foundation. The program gives second chances to rejected young musicians every year. I'm doing for others what David did for me, Marc says. This is how the circle completes itself. This story shows us that sometimes you don't need grand gestures to change lives. Sometimes just listening to someone's music, believing in them, and opening a door is enough. That day, David Bowie didn't just give Marc Bolton a chance, he valued him, and this value transformed into a friendship that lasted decades and permanent change in the music industry.